game of squash, as we now know it, has changed dramatically since its birth at Harrow Public School, England in 1820. It is now a huge participation sport, played in more than 100 countries by over 10 million people. The 70s and 80s were two boom decades in the development of the game, and with the formation of ISPA, the International Squash Players Association, the sport became more professional. As one of the fastest ball games in the world, at a professional level, squash makes huge physical demands, as well as requiring a high level of hand and eye coordination and basic ball skills. The mass participation appeal of squash comes from its competitive nature and the overall improvement in physical fitness of all who play it. Squash has now graduated from a means of getting fit to a major sport in its own right. Top professional players, like you'll see in this video, thrill and inspire thousands of spectators the world over. Modern technological advances and the development of the all-round glass court have at last enabled the pace and excitement of squash to be accurately captured on television. During this first official ISPA coaching video, the major strokes, tactics and general all-round court know-how will be explained and demonstrated by 6 of the world's great professional players, including Jansher Khan. Unquestionably, the finest player the game has produced is the world number 1. Winner of 10 consecutive British Opens, the Pakistan star has every shot in the game, plus a few of his own, all played with power and touch. Although no relation, world number 2 Jansher Khan is Jahanger's natural successor. Aged 22, Jansher has no peer as an athlete. A fast but languid mover around the court, he seems destined to dominate the sport for the remainder of the 90s. Dittmar, the world number 3 from Australia, frequently meets one of the Khans in major tournament finals. The big, powerful left-hander is recognized as one of the game's finest tacticians. Quick to spot any weakness, Dittmar can demolish a careless opponent in rapid time. Ross Norman of New Zealand, the world number 8, ended Jahanger Khan's incredible 5.5-year unbeaten run en route to winning the world title in 1986. A model professional, Ross has stayed in the top flight through his high level of personal fitness and dedication. Del Harris of England, the world number 12, won the British title at the age of 19. For a large man, Del has extraordinary agility and deftness of touch, with a short game which has demolished many a higher-ranked player. Mark McLean, the world number 9 from Scotland, is a comparative late starter in professional squash. His nickname on the circuit is Champagne McLean, but behind his playboy looks and charm is a fiercely determined competitor with all the shots. And to launch our video, the president of the International Squash Players Association.
Hello, I'm Dittmar. What I was doing there looked pretty straightforward, but I spend many hours every day practicing to get it right. Together with some of my fellow players from the International Squash Players Association, we'd like to take you through a few of the basics of this great game of squash and then move on to some of the aspects in greater detail. Let me say right from the beginning, you'll struggle to play good squash if you haven't got the correct grip. The easiest way for me to explain the grip would be to say that it's as though you're shaking hands with the squash racket. And so by placing what I would call the V of the forefinger and the thumb right up and down the middle of the racket. Now I tend to hold the racket towards the end of the grip or the handle, which is perhaps the old traditional way of holding it. And again, making sure that the V goes almost straight up and down the racket with the fingers comfortably spread, nice and evenly spread, as opposed to holding the racket like a hammer or a club. So nice and relaxed, the fingers spread along the racket with that V straight up and down the middle. Now some of today's top players, notably Jahanger Khan of Pakistan and Rodney Martin of Australia, have opted for a more modern grip, if you like, for want of a better word, where they're holding the racket very high up and they've actually shifted the racket, or the V of their hand, they've shifted around slightly so that we have what we call a very open face. And I think they find that they're able to chop or slice the ball more readily by holding the racket this way, and they also feel that their hand is closer to the racket head, therefore gaining more control or more feel, especially when they're playing their touch shots or their drop shots at the front of the court. So there are the two different types of grip, and as I said, you'll struggle right from the word go if you don't have the correct grip. Throughout this video, the world's leading players will be showing you how to play the basic strokes. We'll also illustrate how they're used in actual games using footage from the Leekes Classic to help you understand positional play and tactics. The matches you'll be seeing include the semi-finals between Jansher of Pakistan and world number 5 Chris Robertson of Australia, myself against Rodney Martin, the 1991 world champion from Australia, and the eventual final between myself and Jansher. The area of a squash court is 32 feet long by 21 feet across. To begin the rally, the server must have at least 1 foot placed entirely inside a service box and strike the ball against the front wall above the cut line so that it lands within the receiving area on the opposite half of the court. Once the rally is in progress, you must strike the ball so that it remains below the out-of-court lines and above the tin or board, which is at the base of the front wall. You are allowed 1 bounce only, but can also volley or take the ball on the fall if you wish. You may also strike the ball into the side or back walls, as long as the ball then reaches the front wall without touching the floor first. Recent technology has drastically changed the composition of squash rackets, and the wooden racket is certainly a thing of the past. Rackets these days, as with most sports I believe, are made of carbon graphite, and this was the first example in about the mid-80s or early 80s. One of the early ideas also was to have larger shafts on the rackets, which the companies believed gave the player more power, and certainly worked, I believe, and in fact these days most of the rackets do have the wide or what's called profile shaft. The next perhaps innovation to move on from there was a larger string area. And this Prince racket was the first example of that, where the player is given what's called a larger sweet spot or hitting area, but the sweet spot is really the centre area where we're all trying to hit the ball more often than not, and the longer string formation certainly gave more penetration and more power. This racket also tends to be very, very light in the head, which allows, I guess, for a quicker swing and a quicker movement through the ball, therefore being able to hit it harder as well. In more recent times, again going on from that, is the larger head, whereby we were able to gain extreme power. Again, because of such a large string or racket face area, we're able to put so much more string behind the ball, and the sweet spot, as you can see, is very, very large indeed. I've always felt that your choice of footwear is far more important perhaps than your choice of rackets. Obviously, you must look after your feet and avoid any injuries where possible. Obviously, if you're injured, then you can't play the game. What you should look for when choosing a pair of shoes is very good grip on the sole to make sure you're not slipping and sliding around the court, and very good support, especially around the heel area, underneath the heel, within the sole of the shoe, and also around the Achilles tendon area, making sure also that you won't easily roll side to side and perhaps injure your ankles. So I can't stress enough the importance of choosing a very good pair of shoes.
While Chris prepares himself to demonstrate, there are basically 4 balls that are used in the game of squash. The fastest ball, and for the beginner, is the blue dot. This would be used by the youngster probably first coming into the game who can't really warm the ball up with the strength of racket movement. As the beginner progresses and learns to play the game a little bit better, they would probably move on to the medium pace ball, which is the red dot. The penultimate slow ball is the white dot. This would be used by the progressing player and also by the club player where he's playing in very cold conditions. The most popular ball that is used by squash players is the extra slow. This is the yellow dot. This would be used by most club players and all professionals. So there we have it, the 4 balls, the blue, the red, the white, and finally the yellow dot, the extra slow.
The drive to the back of the court or to the back corner should be the backbone or the base, I believe, of every squash player's game. The main reason being that it's very important to keep your opponent behind you as much as you can and in the back corners, and keep them away from the front of the court. If you were to play too much at the front, you allow them to perhaps choose from a number of shots and dictate the play. And I think the key elements when executing the drive are that firstly we face the side wall with our body, that we take a big backswing, we don't get too close to the ball. As we strike the ball, we meet the ball out in front of our body, and as we're striking the ball, the weight transfers onto our front foot, so we're really leaning into the shot, and then we finish with a very nice follow-through, and we make sure that the ball travels all the way to the back of the court and ends up in the back corner. It's important that we have what's called an open face, which together with the grip becomes very important. It's important to grip the racket in the correct way so as the racket face is open as opposed to being closed or pointing downwards. The face must be open on the racket so that the ball is travelling, I guess, upwards, as opposed to if I have a closed face, the ball would automatically or naturally travel in a downward direction and probably would be hitting the tin most of the time. When I mentioned earlier that we must get the ball to travel to the back corners, when we're not achieving this, or what we call our length is too short, players try to hit the ball harder and harder, and you often fall for that trap. What you can also get away with is just lifting the ball on the front wall and hitting it a bit higher, and you'll achieve the same thing. And coupled with that, it's very important to keep the ball as close to the side wall as possible, or as we say, keeping the ball tight to the side walls. I think when playing the drive, the mistake that all of us make, good players and club standard players alike, is that sometimes we get too close to the ball, and I believe that's a drastic error. It messes up the whole swing. It's very important to land the correct distance away from the ball and therefore take your full swing. I actually believe the backhand drive is easier and really should be everybody's best shot for the simple reason it's much easier to take the ball out in front of your body, as we can see here in the video, as opposed to on the forehand where you must be swinging across your body. As I said earlier, I believe the drive should be the base of everybody's game, and it's a good way to begin any of your practice sessions is by doing a very basic routine, which is the Boston drive. And I think we all fall for the trap when we're doing these practice routines of just hitting the ball, whereas I certainly practice them with everything in mind, the backswing, where my feet are landing as far as the ball's concerned, whether I'm following through, whether my weight is transferring, all those things I mentioned earlier. I certainly concentrate on as I'm hitting the ball. So instead of thinking, well, the Bose drive is so basic, I'm actually concentrating every time I hit that ball on all those things. After all, it is practice, and I try to get the ball to go all the way to the back corner every time. All of the world's best players use the drive, and it certainly is the best part of their games. They all know how important it is to drive the ball to the back corners, and you would rarely see players do anything but that off the return of serve. The return of serve, I would say 8 or 9 times out of 10, is always drive the ball to the back of the court, either straight or cross court to the other corner, and make sure that they get their opponent behind them right from the word go. I want to make sure I've buried my opponent in the back corners. I don't want to give them any advantage whatsoever, so I make sure they're back there and behind me. And in fact, Peter, if my drive is so good, there's only one thing they'll be able to do, and that is boast the ball out of the back corner, which therefore opens up the whole front of the court to me, and I'll then play all of my shots.
Yes, lad.
Let us see in match play some examples of what Chris has been explaining to us. Three points he needs.
Oh, what a wonderful shot.
Well, Jansher shakes his head. He played a bit of a loose shot here, to be fair. Dittmar, he's forced him back. This is the shot that he let Ditz back into the rally with. That was too high. Dittmar was up quickly to play the counter drop.
13-10, Chris Dittmar. 2 points. You'd love a cheap one now, I'm sure. Oh, lovely triple boost. Picking up the point for Jansher.
Well, I was very lucky.
11-13.
Ditz played a very good forehand drop shot, only for Jansher to scrape his racket along the wall and have a winner.
So, Jansher, 11-13. Saves one ball. Brings it back to 2 points.
Go.
Jansher, a weak error there, Mark.
Well, it's pennies from heaven for Dittmar.
And it's given him 14-11. The crowd are getting behind him.
Game ball.
So, game ball to Chris Dittmar, 14-11. You're not having this game easily, says Jansher, and drives him to the back of the court. He's going to
Yes,
be
lad.
asking and getting, yes, quite rightly. Quite right.
14-11. Game ball.
I don't think he was inviting him to his birthday party with that glare at the referee, Mark.
Tell you what, Hugh Reese is in the commentary, in the referee's box, and he'd be trembling now, I reckon.
No.
Oh, but he forces the error. So at 15-11, Chris Dittmar levels the score.
I believe that it's the most important part of my game. There are other players who like to play all of their array of shots, but I can honestly say, like, I love to play shots as well. I like to play drop shots and perhaps volley kills and boasts and things, but I make sure I've driven the ball to the back first. And in fact, there are times where just as a discipline in a match, I'll tell myself to do it 10 times before I play a shot, which other players may disagree with, but I think the drive is that important. Jahangir Khan's record is unmatched in the history of world squash. The world #1 had a spell of over 5 years in the 1980s when he never lost a match. Jahangir is a tremendous all-round player with a very good serve.
Well, I would say of every match or every game, service is really more important thing. And if you have a good serve, then you can really put opponent into a really difficult position, and obviously you can win the point.
There are 3 types of service. Here we see Jahangir serving the high lob serve. The intention will be for him to flight the ball high off the front wall to a maximum width and length, thus forcing his opponent to either play a difficult high volley or to allow the ball to pass behind his body to the back wall. Jahangir shows the perfect balance and preparation for the high lob serve with the all-important open racket face.
And I would say you have to be really in good balance for that one. You have to aim it on the right target.
This view of Jahangir serving the high lob serve is a perfect study in balance, the use of the open racket face and total concentration. The backhand version of the high lob service is hit harder and with a lower trajectory. Whatever your choice of service, concentrate upon moving gracefully to cover the tee in readiness to attack any loose return of serve. The server's intention is always the same, to produce a loose or weak return and then to attack to maximum effect. So remember the basics: balance, concentration, open racket face and attack.
And if he can volley even, he will only play a defensive shot, or if he leave the ball behind to the back wall, he's going to...
Jahangir demonstrates perfectly how to take advantage of a weak return by moving in front of his opponent and playing an attacking boast. The second service, which is becoming more popular on the professional circuit, is the 3/4 pace ball that is served directly at the receiver or even behind him. The receiver will then have the additional problem of having to move before playing the ball, and also may snatch at the oncoming ball, thus producing a weak return that again can be attacked by the server. You even stand a chance of making a direct hit on your opponent and gaining a cheap point, but the basics remain the same: balance, preparation and a readiness to attack from the tee position.
I try to practice more often, like in the court by myself, with the ball, without ball, and you just keep hitting different types in the front wall. Like, you know, I hit 10 different angles and just aim it where the ball goes. And that's always in my mind. When I play in the match, I put that into the match, and that's really give me all this perfection.
The third service is the spectacular corkscrew service. The ball is hit very hard in a steep upward trajectory, hitting the front wall and side wall before screwing high across court. Unless volleyed, the ball will die in the back court with a happy result.
Ross Norman of New Zealand was world champion in 1986 and was the man who in that final halted Jahangir Khan's 5.5-year unbeaten run. Ross has an all-round game with an excellent touch, so essential in the execution of the boast stroke.
We've got two kinds of boast, the attacking boast and the defensive boast. The object of the attacking boast is to work your opponent from the back of the court to the front of the court. The attacking boast is considered more a working shot compared with that of a shot played when looking for an outright winner. That is to say, having just played the boast, you're looking for a weak return on your opponent so you can volley your next shot. Ideally, having just hit the boast, you're looking for the second bounce of the ball to die on the neck. What you don't want to happen is for the ball to sit up on the side or for the ball to come out anywhere near the middle. I think a beginner learning to play the boast, my advice to him would be just to really get in there and practice this shot in the routine of basically boasting and driving. He's got to be looking at varying the pace of the shot. He's got to be looking at varying the angle of the shot and just playing around with those two different things to get his boast right. The practice routines for the boast on the forehand side are very basic, very, very important in when practicing shots for squash. You've got the basic one, which is the boast and drive, which most of the top pros practice. They probably practice this shot more than anything else, really just to get warmed up and just to get their eye into their practice session. This practice routine is with one person at the back of the court, the other person diagonally opposite on the front court. And the person at the back just boasts it, aiming to get it about 2 or 3 inches above the tin. The person at the front then either plays a drop and then drives or cross courts that shot back. And then that just goes on and on for a good 10 or 15 minutes. On the backhand, your routine is very, very much the same. And all you are doing is really just practicing your backhand boast. In a game, you're going to come across, or you're going to find yourself in a position where you're going to have to play various different boasts. And the three variations that do spring to mind are the trickle boast, the three-wall boast, and the volley boast. The trickle boast is played almost as an alternative to playing a drop shot. It's played at the front of the court, and instead of cutting the ball in for a drop shot, you actually just trickle it on that side wall, so it just touches the front wall and then dies, which quite often confuses an opponent of which way the ball is actually going. More often you see this shot only played by top players, but it's such an easy shot to practice and to learn and to master that I'd certainly recommend that the average club player or even beginner learns how to play this shot. As I say, it's a very easy shot to learn, and you do get a lot of rewards from it. The three-wall boast is played quite often as an attacking boast, looking for, as I say, an outright winner. The ball is almost slammed into the first side wall, then goes up the front, hits the front wall, secondly, and then onto the third wall, lastly, and you're looking for that ball to die into the neck of the floor and the third wall that it's hit. That takes a lot of skill to do, and you do have to practice that a lot. The volley boast is the boast that during a game you find that your opponent has hit a fairly loose shot, and I think by playing a drive or a low boast, or letting the ball bounce before boasting it, is not going to keep the pressure on him, but by volley boasting it, it is going to work him, and he has to get up to the front of the court to fetch that ball ever so quickly. The importance of the boast in my game is of the utmost importance. I think it's one of my favourite shots anyway, and it's certainly a shot that you cannot get anywhere near. You can't even advance past club level, I think, without having a reasonable boast, and something which you've obviously got to practice for a long time. There used to be a player about 10 years ago, a guy called Ahmed Safwat, an Egyptian guy, and he probably played the best boast in the business, as they say. It was a real working boast. He could float it round, he could play it hard, just many, many variations of the boast, and it used to be almost artistic watching him play this boast.
Ross Norman, one of the great exponents of the boast, spends a lot of court time practicing this shot, as do his fellow pros, in search of on-court perfection.
The players of today, I think, we've all pretty well got the same sort of boast. I mean, as I say, it is a working shot compared with that when looking for an outright winner, as I say. But I think all the guys play the boast very much the same, with just one idea in mind, and that's to get your opponent from the back of the court to the front of the court.
Like Ross Norman, two fine exponents of the boast shot are Chris Dittmar and Jansher.
It gives me great pleasure to hit a good boast, because I know it's really working my opponent, putting them on the defensive, and then giving me the opportunity to come up, cover the tee, and hopefully volley a weak shot from him.
Jansher, the 1990 world champion, is the latest in a long line of world-class Pakistani squash players. Amazingly athletic, he covers the court with breathtaking speed and seemingly little effort. Jansher is the complete all-round player.
The professional squash players are very fit, obviously, by the very nature of the game they play. To obtain not only their fitness, but also to simulate the match play, they have produced what they call on-court routines. These court routines can take two forms, with and without the use of a ball. Every club player would improve their game considerably if they spent part of their weekly court time doing some solo routines. Here we see Jansher, probably the finest mover on a squash court on the world professional circuit today, doing what we call corners or ghosting. If you watch him closely, he moves with incredible grace. Now, the game of squash is very much about width, and here you see Jansher teaching his body and his mind the width of the court as he moves easily back and forth. Again, he's saying to himself, when I get to match play, I will need to be able to do this without thought, to hold quality of my movement. Here Jansher is doing the diagonal runs. I think the main thing to remember is the economy of movement. If you just watch him, he's moving with infinite ease. Now the big lunges. I don't think I've ever seen this done either by the Australians or the English top players. This is more or less a Pakistani movement. Massive lunge, massive lunge. Well, standing on the tee, Jansher is showing us his skills. The routine that he's playing is cross-court high. The ball is perpetually in play, and the racket face, as you can see, is open, and he's striking the ball beautifully. There's absolutely no movement off the man. He's just standing on the tee and driving the ball high. Jansher tends to want to mix his routines up with the ball. Here we see him striking to the forehand court with both backhand and forehand. Again, if you watch him, he's in the front of the tee in the attack position, always striking, always looking for a nick shot. Jansher's practicing the length of the court, groove in his swing. Backhand. We talk about width in the game of squash, and this is grooved by the hours spent driving the ball on both wings, backhand and forehand, but always looking at the end of his strike to put the ball away. This keeps his mind alert and the interest there for her during what can be a boring time otherwise. Here, Jansher is using the boast in two ways. Not only is he using it for the guiding the ball in for the attack, but also watching his feet. It forces him to move around the court, so you've got a double routine in one here. The use of the ball and the use of the movement together.
In the league's final against Chris Dittmar, watch the wonderful fluid mobility of Jansher Khan in a live match situation as he puts his court practices into play.
Stroke to Jansher. 14-all, set 3.
So 14-all. The receiver has the choice, and he's chosen set 3. It'll be the first player to 17.
3. Right side, set 3.
Jansher confirms that, and he serves at 14-all. It's now totally tied. 1 game all and 14-all. Set 3.
Yes, lad.
Dittmar asks for the let.
Yes, lad.
And he bumps into
14-all.
Jansher's back. They're going to be black and blue tomorrow.
Just letting him know I'm here. Boys concentrating here not to make a silly error.
A stretch from Jansher.
Like the elastic band. Oh, but Dittmar pulls the ball. Superb width shot.
Well, he didn't get at that second one. Fantastic get here on the backhand. Look at that stretch.
15-14.
Dittmar moves him cross court and again tries to lunge out, doesn't get it.
Play that ball, please.
Oh, and
Well,
Dittmar
The marker
is
called the
really
ball
not happy about this.
I'm playing the left ball.
The referee has overruled the markup.
Dittmar's opening the door, having a word with Hugh Rees.
Oh, I didn't agree.
The ball was
Left ball.
called down from Jansher Khan by the marker. Dittmar stopped, feeling he could have played a winner had the rally continued.
15-14.
The referee overruled it.
So, 15-14. Dittmar not happy.
He's growling a bit now.
Bouncing off each other in the middle of this court. Neither's going to give an inch.
Not up.
And that was fair. Dittmar immediately with his hand up.
What a shot from Jansher Khan here. That backhand side
15-all.
proving very prosperous for him. Dittmar gives him an opening here, but again behind the short line. Perfect width.
Oh, how much work does Jansher have to do here? And he's still picking the ball up. Absolutely amazing stuff. Oh! Oh, that was really quite incredible.
Well, Chris Dittmar shaking his head here. Look at this retrieve from Jansher. He'd already made one incredible pickup. That was another one. And then he's on to this like, shot down the line past Chris Dittmar's despairing lunge. What a rally for Jansher Khan.
16-15, game ball.
So, Jansher 16-15 and his first game ball.
Be lucky to get a let here.
Game.
No, he's not.
17-15, calm.
He immediately walks, so Jansher takes this game. 17-15.
Del Harris is the golden boy of English squash who has overcome a serious back injury to again challenge the world's best. A very agile mover for such a big man and a powerful hitter, Del has surprisingly delicate touch for such a big man. He's an expert on the drop shot.
I think the importance of the drop shot in nowadays game is very, very important indeed. The drop shot is one of the most important shots in the game and can be used to win rallies, and you can win a large majority of the points from the drop shot. There's two real variations in the straight drop shot. One of those is a drop where you attack and you go for the neck for the outright winner. That's where you hit the ball just above the 10 and angle it into the side wall towards the neck or very low down the side wall hoping then that the ball will hit the nick and roll out for the outright winner. The other sort of straight drop shot is just a push shot, where you just push it, don't aim for the side wall, and just try and get the ball to bounce very tight to the side wall, so your opponent can't really do anything with the ball. They're the two straight drop shots. There's cross-court drop shots you can play as well, where you can sort of flick it cross-court off a weak boast when your opponent's still at the back of the court, for deception purposes, where you just flick cross-court instead of actually hitting a straight drive where he's expecting it. There's another drop shot you can play from the back of the court, which isn't really used that often. If there's a long rally where there's a lot of lengths being hit, you can throw in a drop shot from the back, a straight drop, and your opponent won't really be expecting that. So it's a bit of a surprise shot. It's very hard to play, there's a high risk factor involved, but if you play it right, it can win you quite a few points just from the surprise factor.
The most popular drop shot routine is with your partner feeding you with a boast from the back of the court. Moving from the tee position, you can practice the drop shot before playing a straight drive for your partner to feed the ball with a boast your other wing. Like Del Harris, concentrate on keeping your body well balanced as you lean over the ball, keeping your head down. Then with a short swing and an open racket face, execute a positive stroke through the ball to the nick area, front wall, side wall. The drop shot is the stroke that wins more points than any other, and hence deserves a generous portion of your practice time.
I find it fairly easy. It's one of my favourite shots, but quite a few people find it difficult. The main thing is playing at the right time. If you play at the right time, it's very effective. But then again, if you play at the wrong time, you can be put under a lot of pressure. Really, when you're striking the drop shot, you should try and get low to the ball, get your legs bent, and not stand too upright. You should open your racket face, use a short swing. I tend to use a high grip for more control, and just swing through the ball and aim sort of front wall, side wall towards the nick area. I aim far too close to the tin, really. Maybe about an inch above the tin, I think, really, for safety purposes. In a match, the best time to play the shot, really, is when you're at the front of the court and your opponent, say, played a weak boast or a weak shot and he's at the back of the court. Then you move in and play a tight drop shot, really, so he has to cover the length of the court to get it back. I suppose one of the worst places to play a drop is from the back of the court, and your opponent is already at the front of the court waiting and anticipating your shot. Then it's a bad shot. Also, if you play a drop shot and your opponent is still at the front of the court, it puts you under a lot of pressure. So there's two cases of a bad place to play it.
Chris Dittmar plays a poor drop shot from the back of the court, allowing Rodney Martin an easy kill.
In the world players, probably two of the best players playing the drop shot, in my opinion, would be Jansher and Rodney Martin. Jansher, mainly on his backhand drop's one of the best drop shots in the game. Rodney Martin, the drop shot from anywhere, really. They're the two best players.
And let's watch Martin in action against Dittmar.
This will be in after this.
Rodney's sprinting now. He's on his last legs.
And drives.
Oh, what a shot and what a time to do it. Taking the score to 12-14. Rodney Martin has played 3 brilliant shots.
Oh, this was an incredible backhand volley. The ball was high. He's got over the top of it, sliced it cross court into the nick.
I think it's the best shot to play, satisfaction-wise anyway. If you play a good nick shot and win the points, it's very thrilling, really, better than winning a point off a length or a lob, say.
Mark McLean is ranked 9th in the world and #1 in Scotland. Although he got a degree in social studies at Edinburgh University, he rightly felt his talents would be better expressed on a squash court, where he is now recognised as one of the best doubles players in the world.
Well, I think the main thing about the volley is that you're taking the ball early, cutting off your opponent's chances, giving him less time to respond to your shot. And from my point of view, I think it's a pressure thing, that you can actually exert a lot of pressure by taking the ball early, cutting it off and using the volley. You've got to get round, facing the side wall on either side, so that's really facing on right foot forward on the backhand, left foot forward on the forehand. As long as you're balanced position, not too close to the ball, reasonable racket extension, then you can strike the ball comfortably on the volley. It's the same swing for conventional drive, reasonably short swing. Racket preparation is the main thing. If you've got your racket ready on either side, when you're positioned on the tee, you can move to the forehand, you can move to the backhand, and the racket's automatically in the right position, ready to look for the early ball. Returning of serve is one of the straightforward volleys that you'll play, but I think it's really used to create openings. From my point of view, you look to create openings with a volley, get onto the ball early, and hopefully create a winning situation possibly for your next shot, which may be a drop shot or something like that. But that's the way I look at it from my point of view. Well, the lob is a very useful shot, and it can be used both in attack and defence. Mainly people tend to think of the lob as a defensive shot, although I think the good professionals would look upon it as an attacking shot also. The beauty of it is it gets you out of trouble, gives you time to recover the tee position, regain composure, and possibly, if you're a little bit breathless, out of breath, gives you time to, get your breath back. You want to make sure you get width and height on the lob and not give it to him on the tee. I think that you can decide when you're ready to play the lob, because if you're under pressure, you know you've got to give yourself time and put the ball in the air. But the main thing to remember, get it high, get it wide, and really keep it high and dry away from your opponent. Obviously, the classic lob would come lifted high onto the front wall and dropping off the side wall, and that's going to make it very difficult. Your opponent hopefully push him back and force a weak post or force a weak return. You could play the lob down the middle, get him off guard. It's really varying height and angle and width that you can use, and really to keep the element of surprise in there. I like to use a lob, get me out of trouble, and I feel that's probably one of my better shots in the forehand. I feel that forehand lob's quite a useful shot. From a personal point of view, I like to get on court solo practice and with a partner, because there's countless routines that we do that can groove your volley swing, forehand and backhand, so that you feel confident in a game situation, moving forward, hitting your volley. There's not too many of the guys in the top 20 that aren't impressive on the volley. It's one of the shots you've got to have. If you're going to make any inroads in squash, you really have got to be able to hit four corners of the court, and the volley is a crucial part of that.
Let's have a look at two of the finest volleyers in the game, with Chris Dittmar demonstrating a deadly volley shot against Jansher.
Just superb deception there from Chris Dittmar. Don't as if to play it down the back. Score stays at 6-4. Dittmar serving. And there he hits a beautiful forehand drive tight to the front side wall.
This is a great shot from Dittmar. Service onto this ball like a shot. It's a great width.
10-5. He's now got a 5-point gap. Oh.
There's a lot of players around that tend to forget you've got a lot of room to play with up there. So, why not use it? Use all the angles and all the dimensions of the court, really. And you've got to remember that you've got a lot of height and you've got a lot of width. And if you can hit a good lob, you're on your way to success.
Okay, I'm here today to talk a little bit about warming up and stretching out before you play your game of squash. Squash, being the game it is very aggressive, very fast, very explosive, and if you don't warm up properly, you're going to leave yourself wide open to injury. The important thing is, a lot of club players, they get to a squash club, get changed with about 30 seconds to spare and get straight onto a squash court and blast straight off into a game. That's the worst sort of thing you can do. It is important, very important, to get to the squash club, get changed, and just give yourself only 5 minutes to warm up and stretch out. 5 minutes is not very long. It could save you a lot of trouble afterwards, after you may pull a muscle by not stretching out. So the first thing we've got to look at is really just warming up. It's a very, very simple routine. I'll take you through what I actually do to warm up before I start stretching out. Just going back, warming up is very, very important before you stretch out, because your muscles, when you do come to stretch out, will stretch a lot further once they're warm. You do still are in danger of pulling a muscle, even if by just stretching without warming up. So With tracksuit on, find a space somewhere in your squash club, preferably on a court. What I'm going to do is run up and down the court just 20 times. All that takes is a minute, and that minute will be a minute well spent. If you can't get on court, someone else is on the court, you don't have it for another couple of minutes, then run up and down just outside the court, perhaps in the change rooms, or perhaps even outside. But with tracksuit on, just to try and warm the body up and get the muscles working. With my tracksuit off now, I'm ready to stretch. Let's start by stretching from the bottom upwards. The first set of muscles you stretch are the Achilles tendon and the calf muscle. And the easiest way of doing that is finding a wall, standing about 3 feet out from it, and stretching the right Achilles tendon. Keep the foot flat on the floor, and then just move forward until it gets tight. Once it's tight, but not overstretched, that's important, hold for a count of 10. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The other leg, again, right foot in front, just till it feels tight. You can actually tighten the Achilles a little bit further by just leaning forward like that, keeping your foot flat on the ground. Okay, to stretch both the Achilles and the calf muscles together, I find by sitting down on the floor, keeping your legs straight, see if you can touch forward, hold your ankles, and then lean forward. If you can possibly touch your toes, pull the tops of your feet backwards so as to tighten the Achilles tendon, and you'll feel the calf muscles tighten as well. And then just lean forward until it's tight with the count of 10. Right, the next muscles we are going to stretch are the quads. The muscles up top here. And I find the easiest way is to bend the leg back behind here and just lean back until it feels tight for the count of 10. Okay, straighten the other leg, the other one comes over. Just until it's tight. You don't want to overstretch a muscle, it's the worst thing you can do. Just till it's tight and count to 10. Okay, next set of muscles are the hamstrings. These are probably the most common muscles you'll actually, or ligaments you'll actually pull in a game of squash. So it's very, very important to spend probably more time on stretching your hamstrings than just about any other muscle. So again, to the count of 10, just spread your legs like that, 90-degree angle, lean over, holding your ankle with both arms, and just lean down and see if you can, just important to lean forward until it gets tight. It may be up here, it may be down here, until it's tight, and then just hold there for a count of 10. If you can possibly get your head right down onto either your knee or even further forward, then to make it tight, then that's good. So to a count of 10, keeping the other leg straight. And of course on the other side. If you can also be stretching your calf, your Achilles, and your hamstrings all at the same time by just pulling back here. That's if you can reach that far. If you can't, just settle with the holding your calf muscle and just leaning over like that. But to stretch all three, okay. The other way of stretching your hamstring and groin, your abductors and your the muscles that come between the top of your leg and your hip by stretching, and it's a very typical stretch in squash when you lunge for the ball. So it's almost a lunge stretch. So if you can just stretch, you can get down like this far or even further. This stretches, like I say, the hamstring and the abductors around the top of the leg. For a count of 10, and then come up and keep your leg bent at a 90-degree angle and trying to keep your balance. Just lean back and you'll feel the muscles at the top here, just next to the abductors, go very, very tight. These are also very prone to injury in squash. Just till they're tight, and then hold the count of 10. Okay, and then stretching the other leg, going through the same thing. As low as you can, just till it feels very tight. Should be tight just along here, along the bottom of the left leg. And up again, 90 degrees, stretch back. That's for these muscles now along here. Okay, for the count of 10. So that's more or less all your legs, your hips down. Another big area for squash for injury is your lower back. So sitting on the floor, bend one leg here, another leg here, and facing straight, just pull this knee over towards your right. And you'll feel right round your lower back start to stretch. If you can get it right round like that, and then turn. To a count of 10, and then change. Okay, we're down to the last stretch now. We're going to stretch the middle and upper back. This exercise is done by sitting on the floor, bringing your legs over the back of your head and touching the floor on the other side. So let's start by sitting down. The legs are then going to come over the head and touch this other side, thereby stretching all the muscles along your vertebrae, along your back. If you can't get your legs up over to touch the floor behind, just settle for about halfway, just until, as I said, all the way through to stretch those muscles to a point where they're tight, but not feeling uneasy, feeling too tight, feeling like you're straining the muscles, okay? So let's do the half stretch to start with. If you can get that far and it feels tight, then hold there. Support your hips with your hands and just count to 10. If you can go all the way over to touch the floor, that's what we eventually want to achieve. If your hips don't need supporting, bring your arms out just to hold your toes on the ground. Once again, if I can just emphasize, if it feels too tight, then just ease back a little bit. Back to that position there. To a count of 10. And very slowly, recoiling and loosening up the back and standing up again. Okay, there's a very, very basic set of stretching routines. All it's taken is 5 minutes. Hope you've enjoyed it. And just to coin an old phrase, prevention is better than cure, so enjoy your squash.
Now the Leekes Classic final between Jansher and Chris Dittmar, who between them will illustrate all the strokes that the 6 players have been demonstrating.
Khan leads 2 games to 1. Love all.
So Jansher starts the 4th game, leading 2 games to 1.
Stroke to Khan.
Stroke to Khan, 1 love.
No lad.
Dittmar's going to not get in. I won't be happy with this one.
Fair decision again from
2 love.
Davies. He's done well tonight.
Jansher, 2 love up. 4th game. And 2-1 up in games.
3 love.
So 3 love. An early break.
Here we see the cheap error. Backhand volley error from Dittmar.
It begs the question mark, is he thinking about the chances he had in the last game?
Well,
Yes, lad.
I'm sure Dittmar's a good
Yes,
enough
lad.
professional
3
to
love.
put that out of his head straight away.
So the score staying 3 love. Jansher serving.
Down.
Well,
Hand out, 1-3.
tins the ball with the high overhead.
Dittmar just taking a little walk around the court, calm himself, settle himself for what will now be a major effort.
So Dittmar with his first point in this game, 1-3. Oh, wonderful serve for the club player to learn from. Bought him some time to get back into that. Seems a new resolve about Jansher. He senses victory and he's going to be attacking in this one. No quarter-hour's chirp. This is tough.
Dittmar's on the rack here.
Oh, lovely flight of direction, but down.
Dittmar taking a bit of a breather at the front of the court.
2-3.
He was all over the place, Dittmar here, but he forced an error out of Jansher's forehand drop shot there.
Dittmar serving. 2-3.
Yes, lad.
Yes, lad. 2-3.
Jansher doing a little bounce into the back of Dittmar and bouncing off.
Stroke to
Dittmar's
Dittmar.
asking for.
Stroke to Dittmar, 3-all.
Dittmar trying to make room on his backhand. Jansher didn't clear him, give him enough room to play the ball. Pays the ultimate penalty.
Brings the score back to 3-all. Oh, Jansher saying, can I have one as well?
Well, that's the same situation.
What he asked
Dittmar
you,
trying to claim that he cleared the ball.
Stroke to Khan.
Good play, son.
Again, he fixes on the
4-3.
referee, but it was a similar situation as the last one.
So 4-3. Oh, goodness, how hard does he hit this ball? But an error. 5-3.
5-3.
Jansher moves into the service area. Wipes his hand. Prepares to serve.
Dittmar doesn't look short of ideas. He knows what he's got to do. He's got to move forward on the volley. He's got to attack now. It's funny, it looks as if Jansher had fallen asleep for a game and a half, and now he's back into the groove.
Yes, he's playing with that early confidence, recovering, retrieving, and attacking.
Yes, lad.
And then
Yes, let.
the let.
5-3.
I noticed that neither of
Right
the
side,
players,
please.
Shermark, play with the very large head racket like you do.
Oh, that's right. A lot of the players now are using the large-headed rackets, but these two preferring the mid-size rackets.
Stroke to Jansher.
Stroke to calm. 6-3.
As they say, Robert, it's not the size of your wand, it's the magic in it.
Yes, I do say that. So, 6-3 to Jansher, 3-point lead. Trying to build on it. Into the attack and counter-attack. They're going to be sore in the morning with this movement. Oh, oh, and he stretched and misses it.
Dittmar forced to work very hard in this rally. He had to twist and turn. Jansher was angling it around. You see the forehand volley played from the backhand side. Dittmar stretches out but can't quite reach it.
Long walk around the court for Jansher. Prepares himself slowly. 7-3, serving.
Goes for the big forehand cross court.
Oh. Fine cross court drive there by Jansher. Gives him an 8-3 lead.
Great delay here from Jansher Khan. Again, forces his opponent deep. Looks for the opening. He holds this one forever. And then just chips it cross court. Wrong foot and Chris Dittmar.
Yes, lad.
Players getting a bit tied up. Ditz.
Again, you can see the frustration on Dittmar's face. He's come up against Jansher Khan on a number of finals, and it just seems that the Pakistani pulls out enough to beat him.
So, let ball. Jansher serving, 8-3.
9-3.
Easy point, and the score moves on, 9-3, 6-point lead.
It's all sort of cheap errors that Dittmar won't want to be given away at this stage.
Well, superb length. That wasn't a fault by Dittmar, Mark, was it?
Well, no, look, his head looks to be
10-3.
down a bit now.
10-3. He's opened up a gap. 7-point gap at a vital stage. 2-1 up. He's surely looking to close this out now, Mark.
Well, he's looking hot favourite at the moment.
And in fairness to the boy, he's looked very good all week.
Well, he's been very impressive. Quarter-final against Rodney Isles. He's now looking all over the winner.
Oh. Oh, now they both got a bit tied up.
Dittmar drove this overhead volley towards a nick.
So he brings it back. Chris Dittmar serving now. 4-10, hand in.
Ball bounces up at that forehand nick. It's going to take a mighty effort from Chris Dittmar now.
Yep, he's created a mountain for himself, isn't he? But he's the sort of man who climbs mountains. Oh.
He's on the rack again.
This is terrific movement, and that was just too tight.
Oh, Jansher just showing what economy of movement just to the front of the court. And it was a very tight backhand drop shot.
11-4. Jansher is 4 points away from from retaining his title.
He's just moving Dittmar around the court now, and he looks to be moving still very, very well.
No net.
Is Dittmar having a chat with the Devonshire?
Well, he's looking skyward as if to say, it's about time I had a few of those.
The let refused. Chris Dittmar, 5-11. But he's in a lot of trouble and then picks it.
Oh, hell, Dittmar.
6-11.
Bit of a despairing lunge, but he needs a bit of luck now.
6-11.
Here we see it. Pushes Jansher deep. Here was the lunge. But he's just got his racket onto it. Bit of a miss hit.
So 6-11. Dittmar's got to find something new, Mark, some new ideas. Otherwise, he's going to be out of this final.
That's right.
Stop to Jansher.
Ah.
Wow, Dittmar.
Stroke to Khan, hand out.
I can understand his frustration here. This was a backcourt.
Yes.
Backcourt interference. Jansher can't appear to be moving backwards off the ball. It looked to be a classic let situation. And it's just what Chris Dittmar does not need at this stage in a match.
So, 12-6, Jansher serving. Fourth game, he's leading 2-1. So he's 3 points away from a possible victory in this, the final.
Stroke to Jansher.
Oh, that's definitely a stroke.
The second stroke.
Stroke to Khan,
On the trot.
13-6.
Jansher, 13-6.
Down.
Oh, that is despair. Total despair.
14-6. Match ball.
Match ball for the championship. The Jansher is... Lot of movement. Jansher in for the kill.
Okay.
And he gets it. He retains his championship. But it has to be said, Mark, what a wonderful performance by that man.
Well, he fought long and hard, Chris Dittmar. A great final, great contest between two great players.
I hope you've enjoyed these first few examples of what helps to make a good squash player. Practice hard and get the basics right, and I'm sure that as you improve, you'll enjoy your squash all the more. So come and join me.